they would be somewhat elongated.
Aristotle, man. Exciting. Yeah, I would say that he is the philosopher that has had the biggest impact on my life. And maybe some of that is just because of the time he caught me. You know, I was in my early 20s and thinking about life. And so we're going to just talk about the Nicomachean Ethics today. Aristotle has done a lot other than that. But this is the book that had the biggest impact on me. And it's funny because in the beginning, he just talks about, okay, this is the purpose of life. which I really like. I mean, I feel like a lot of philosophy has lost that as its aim. And so he has a proof in the Nicomachean Ethics that the purpose of life is human flourishing. In this translation, so this is the Penguin translation, the word happiness is used, but it's really a translation of the Greek eudaimonia, which we can talk about later. So he basically says, look, if there is a purpose to life, then it has to be like a final end. You don't achieve the purpose in life in order to achieve something else. But for most of the things that we do, they're instrumental. So for instance, if you go to the gas station to buy petrol, that is in order to, let's say, get your car from A to B. And then it's like, well, why would you want to move destinations? It's like, okay, well, maybe you want to go to work. Okay, well, why do you want to go to work? To make money. Okay, well, why do you want to make money? And so on and so forth. And Aristotle says, well, if there's a purpose to life, it can't be that you achieve that purpose in order to do something else. It has to be a final end. So he says, since there are evidently more ends than one, and of these we choose some as a means to something else, it is clear that not all of them are final ends, whereas the supreme good is obviously something final. Well, happiness, more than anything, is thought to be just such an end, because we always choose it for itself and never for any other reason. Happiness, then, is found to be something perfect and self-sufficient, being the end to which our actions are directed. I remember reading that as a young, 22-year-old or something, and being like, wow, that's really, okay, cool. The purpose of life is to be happy. But as I said, happiness is an English translation that is not necessarily accurate. And so happily, he goes on in the next section to go, what is happiness? And define it. So there Aristotle uses something that he's famous for called teleological reasoning. Telos is the Greek word for end, or function or purpose. So what is the proper functioning of an adult or of a human? And the way that Aristotle goes about figuring out what the function of a certain thing is he sees how it's different from other things. So for instance, the function of a chair is to be sat in, because if you look at the characteristics of a chair relative to other objects, it serves that function very well. A knife is really sharp, so it serves the function of cutting very well. So then the question is, humans are animals? And in the Politics, actually, Aristotle goes on to say that the human being is a politikon zoon. It's a political creature or a social creature. And he says that what distinguishes humans from every other animal is rationality. So therefore, the proper functioning of a human, if there is anything, is to act rationally or to align the soul with virtue. So the happy person is one who aligns the soul with virtue, not for a moment as well, because you can see easily by counterexample, it's not good enough to simply live in virtue once in a split second. Rather that one has to spend their lifetime aligning the soul with virtue. So there's a time component here. And he also says you need enough stuff in your life that you're not just surviving, which is really interesting because it kind of harks back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Difficult to align the soul with virtue if you're hungry, starving, cold, all of those things. So the happy person is somebody who aligns their soul with virtue, who is adequately furnished with external goods and does so not once, but throughout the course of a lifetime. So I've laid out a bunch of stuff there. Any thoughts or reactions to that?
I think I'd agree with most of that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't actually have too much to say about it right now.
Okay. Yeah, this word eudaimonia is really interesting because is the Greek word for good. Like eulogy is good word. And your daimon, you might find interesting. Your daimon is the thing that you call a spirit. That is the thing that you attribute your decisions to. That's kind of in you. And is it you? Maybe that's the thing that you think of as your ego or your self. So it's your spirit. So eudaimonia means like good spirit, or aligning your soul with virtue. Okay, well, if you don't have any objections to that, then we'll move on to try and figure out what virtue is. And so here, part of it is to kind of live an ethical life. And it's important that we're trying to act in accordance with virtue. Action is really important. So it's not enough to merely be rational, but that your actions have to be well motivated, and it's not good enough to think brave thoughts. You need to be a brave person, which it means to act bravely.
Before we get to that,
yes,
if I may,
yes.
So yeah, if if you want to say like the purpose of life is to be happy, in a summary. Yeah, human flourishing, or to align the soul with virtue, I think is better. The thing is, it's not easy to know what it is that will make you happy, right? Okay. But I think maybe to me that's that excitement feeling when I have an idea of pursuing something or doing something that makes me excited. I think I know that'll also make me happy in a way. So that's possibly my way of like navigating things in an easy way for me, because it's very obvious to me when I'm excited about something, you know.
Yeah, no, it makes me think, because Aristotle does say like you want it to feel good to do the right thing. In the end, the goal is to do what you feel like, but that your feelings are admirable and well justified and rational. Yeah. And he does talk about how a lot of that is formed during childhood, which I think he's correct about. And so he says, show me the boy at 7 and I'll show you the man. So it's interesting, that in the end, I think excitement is probably a good gauge.
As long as you're aligned.
That's what I was going to say. Unless it's like a pathological, it's difficult to figure that out.
So then maybe the work is in aligning what excites you with what is virtuous.
Wonderful. So he says, well, actually I can read it out. He says, we become just by performing just acts, temperate by performing temperate ones, brave by performing brave ones. Like activities produce like dispositions. So like if you want to be more just act justly, and then that becomes a habit. And then in that habit, you do it for an extended period of time and you become a just person. It's kind of like a recipe for, it kind of in hindsight sounds a little simple, but it's really nice mechanism for, don't think about it, just do it. If you want to be more temperate, just do that for a while until it becomes a habit, is essentially what he's saying here.
Yeah, cool. If you want to be more brave, just be more brave. And that's difficult. That'll be difficult for some people.
Yep.
Yeah. It's almost harsh if someone's like cowardly. Like, well, if you want to be braver, just be braver. You know what I mean?
It is a bit harsh.
Yeah. Although I guess you'd say just challenge yourself constantly, being a bit uncomfortable with how courageous you have to be on whatever the thing is.
I think it's ultimately optimistic because he's saying that whatever you want to be, just practice it. And that includes your personality and your character. I think that's why this book really jumped out at me at that age, because I was like, oh, I can be whatever I want to be. And according to Aristotle, being an admirable, just person is how to live a good life. Your character is the basis for how to live a good, happy, flourishing life. So character then becomes kind of like the central focus of your life. And for me, what I found is that the times when I feel most aligned with, let's say, virtue or eudaimonia or whatever comes out of that is wonderful. You don't have to focus on results. The results will come if you're a temperate, just, generous, hardworking person. You don't have to focus on money or reputation or any of the other things that Aristotle would call instrumental. You don't have to focus on those things, because if you just simply focus on character, everything else comes about as a result. And for me, what I found is that all the other stuff then becomes so secondary that if you simply focus on aligning your soul with virtue or building admirable character, that in itself is the goal. That is in itself is the end. And it's so fulfilling merely to do that. That if you do, for me, if you do that, the circumstances matter so much less. And what's wonderful about that is aligning the soul with virtue is robust to circumstances. You can do that wherever you want, wherever you are in life, whatever age, whatever country, whatever station in life you have. Because it's always aligning. It's not about reaching a destination of being just and then being just forever. No, it's a practice. So there isn't a final destination to be reached. It's always about the journey of like guiding your soul towards virtue.
Nice.
Cool. So then what is virtue? And he says, so this is where the golden mean comes up, which I'll in a minute I'll talk about why I don't actually think that's the best term for this.
Yeah.
Because what he actually says is, okay, you can feel fear, you can feel confidence, you can feel desire, anger, pity, pleasure, and pain, but you can either have these in too little amount or too much. Too much fear, too much confidence, too much desire, too little confidence, too little fear. So he kind of lays out all of these things along a spectrum, and then the popular view is that you aim for the golden mean. But actually, this is what he says. You want to have these feelings at the right time, on the right grounds, towards the right people, for the right motive, in the right way. That's not the average or the mean. That's not the middle point. To have them in the right way at the right time on the right grounds. To me, he then says, which is to feel them in an intermediate amount, which I don't necessarily think I agree with. And look, this might actually just be an artifact of the translation. He might have been actually using an amazingly precise Greek word. And here we're left with the word intermediate. He says, that is to say, to the best degree. You want to feel it to the best degree. And this is a mark of virtue. So yeah, he says, virtue then is a mean condition inasmuch as it aims at hitting the mean. But I don't really see as what he's laying out as the mean. It's just that you want to avoid extremes. You don't want to feel too much fear. You don't want to feel too much guilt. You don't want to feel too much anger or too much pity. You want to feel these things in an intermediate amount. And I think probably the reason for that is because if you're too emotional, you can't act rationally, which we've already established. The appropriate thing for a human to do is to act in accordance with rationality. So, yeah, I don't like, he even calls it the doctrine of the mean, which I think is a little, maybe a translation thing, but I don't like this idea that you aim for the middle point. Because in certain circumstances, you have to overshoot confidence. And in certain circumstances, it makes sense to listen to the fear signal. So, yeah.
Can you give an example of a circumstance where you have to overshoot confidence?
Well, sometimes we've talked about how if you're not a courageous person, what you think is bravery is actually cowardice. And sometimes in order to rally the troops before battle, you would prefer them to be a little overconfident going into battle. Think about UFC fighters. You know, they know that they're playing a psychological trick with themselves, but they always just say, "I'm going to win, and I'm going to defeat you for all of these reasons." And I think that overconfidence is necessary to perform at their best. You don't want to have any fear in that circumstance. So, yeah, as we've talked about before, I don't like this framing around the golden mean. It's on the right grounds at the right time towards the right people in the right amount. It's not in an intermediate amount, even though that's the word that is used, but the right amount. So that, for me, it's too simplistic to aim for the middle.
How do you know what the right amount is, though?
It's funny because he gives kind of like a tautological answer, which is that like the good man knows the right amount.
Yeah.
So the right amount is the amount that the good man would use or the virtuous person would use.
And was it something about knowing who the people you think are most virtuous are good examples? And
I don't think Aristotle actually says that.
Okay.
Directly. Yeah, it's interesting because I came across that epiphany. I was waiting to go into a philosophy of happiness class actually, and I had like an hour break. So I went to the library and just like picked up a book on Aristotelian virtue ethics, and the author talked about how one way to figure out what you find, what the virtue is to find people that you personally find admirable, and then to kind of model them. And what's cool about that is it's person specific. So I don't think that there is such thing as like the virtuous man who is the best model for everybody. Maybe Aristotle would argue differently, but I think there's too much variety for that. And that's desirable.
So even though you don't want to use the term, everyone's golden mean is different on different virtues.
I don't like that framing as well, because it says at the right amount at the right time.
Yeah.
So I don't think that anybody has a golden mean.
Yeah, it's always
in the sense
changing.
It's always changing.
Yeah.
In the circumstances.
And it will be different for different people.
Yeah.
In the same circumstance.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that. But Aristotle does set out I can even read it to you. He sets out the characteristics of what he calls the magnanimous man.
Nice.
So
that's a nice compliment to strive for.
Yeah, but although it just sounds like maybe, because when I read this, I'm like, this is your opinion, brother. This sounds like maybe what you want to be. Anyway, he says, look, the magnanimous man does not take petty risks. He's disposed to confer benefits, but is ashamed to accept them. When he repays a service, he does so with interest. He never or only reluctantly makes a request, whereas he is eager to help others. He's haughty towards those that are influential and successful, but moderate towards those who have an intermediate position in society. He does not enter popularity contests. He is bound to be open in his likes and dislikes, because concealment is a mark of timidity, and to speak and act straightforwardly. He cannot bear to live in dependence on somebody else. He is prone to express admiration. He does not nurse resentment. This one you might disagree with. He does not care about personal conversation. He will neither talk about himself nor anybody else, because he does not care to be complimented or to hear others be criticized. He's the last person to complain. His speech is unhurried. He takes very few things seriously. And he's not excitable, because he doesn't regard anything as being great.
There's a lot of epicness in there.
Okay, cool.
Which I do like.
Great.
I don't know about that last one. That seems a bit sad.
I like that one. We can talk about, yeah.
Yeah. Can I see it?
Differences,
Go through. I mean, for the ones, maybe we can go through one at a time. What do you think?
Sure.
Yeah. I've never heard that before.
Okay.
And I love it. It's what every 7-year-old should be told. What do you think?
I don't know. We'll go through one by one.
That's too much for them, yeah. Okay. Does not take petty risks.
Yeah, I think we can agree with that.
Yeah. Let's explore them though. So that's if you're going to take a risk, it's like a significant risk with a significant reward.
Yeah.
Potential. Yeah. And if it's petty, then don't even bother.
100%. Yeah, that's how I feel. Yep, nice. I agree with that one.
Cool. I'm just trying to think of also examples in life of these things.
The one that came to mind just now was hey man, do you think you could jump over that canal? It's who cares?
Yeah.
That's a petty risk. You can get injured. So what's the upside of that? There's no upside. So.
Yeah. That sounds fun. Yeah. But would you think of gymnastics as petty risks?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that.
I don't think Aristotle would have any problem with gymnastics.
Yeah. It's a little bit different, I guess. Yeah. In this, I should explore that. I think there's beauty in achieving a new movement, and there's a risk involved. But mastering that skill, I guess, is valuable, as opposed to just doing it without any thought or it's not random. It's yeah. As mastery of a discipline. So yeah. Okay, and then what? Yeah. So more significant risk that's worth it. I'm gonna spend a year of my life working on this thing because I think it could go somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Nor does he court danger. Yeah, I guess doing dangerous things for the sake of doing dangerous things. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's too far on one side of.
Yeah, it says because there are few things that he values highly, but he takes great risks. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, and when he faces danger, he is unsparing of his life, because to him there are some circumstances in which it is not worth living. Impressive. Wait, so you skipped? Oh yeah, because it's long, isn't it? Wow.
Oh, it's 2 pages.
Yeah. Okay, I thought you read it in full. Okay.
I highlight
Yes.
the ones that are important.
Okay. Wow, that's cool, man. I got to read this properly later. How did I not know about this?
I knew you'd like it.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, I'll just keep going with what Nick has highlighted. That's so cool. There are some circumstances in which life, it's not worth living. Interesting. Some people wouldn't think about that. Yeah. I can understand that.
Yep.
One of those circumstances might be you don't respect yourself.
Oh.
You know what I mean? By not living a virtuous way.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Just to caveat that, not at all talking about suicide. I think in this case he's more saying do some things regardless of the fear of your life if you believe in it enough. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. He's disposed to confer benefits, but is ashamed to accept them. That's cool. That's I feel like that one I had an epiphany when I was like 15 or something, where as a kid, like, you'd get compliments and you'd appreciate them. You know, it's nice and it makes you feel good. But I remember getting to a point where I was like, I never really congratulate other people.
Okay.
I just had this natural realization.
Okay.
And then I was like, I'm gonna start doing that and see what it's like. And then it just felt nice.
Yep.
And I felt I enjoyed seeing other people be recognized and appreciated.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I think I naturally came around to that.
Yep.
Yeah, which is cool. Lovely.
I think maybe for me, I take that too far sometimes. I'm not very good at taking compliments or praise.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's ashamed to accept them. That's a strong statement.
That's kind of how I feel sometimes. Which I'm not sure is healthy.
Yeah, I feel like because then as the complimenter, you might feel uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Which doesn't work in the sense of you're
I think I've done that.
Conferring.
I made the complimenter feel a bit
uncomfortable. Yeah. But as someone that's disposed to conferring benefits, right? Like, because if everyone was ashamed of it, then you wouldn't do it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Yeah, other people are good at taking compliments.
Yeah.
But I'll show you later, but in the back of the book, he kind of says that the golden mean here is truthfulness. You don't want to not be good at taking compliments. You don't want to be boastful. What's in between those? Truthfulness. So you just say, okay, that did happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost like, thank you for recognizing my hard work.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Okay. I love you didn't tell us that you just highlighted, or you didn't mention that, did you?
What?
It's just so cool. I have to read this whole thing. Anyway.
You thought that I was just reading it.
I thought you were reading it like verbatim.
No, I wasn't.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. There's so much golden here. Okay. When he repays the service, he does so with interest. That's really cool. I like that as well. Especially like don't owe people.
Mm-hmm.
Which I can understand. As I get older, I can understand that.
Yeah.
It's a nice way to put it there. He does so with interest. Nice. That's cool, man.
This is a man of honor.
Yeah, I think I honestly could do that more personally. Yeah, and then I suppose if you're starting to do that, you probably want to keep being more and more generous with the interest. In terms of like almost the golden mean, until you're like, okay, that was too much. Do you think? I think so though, because otherwise you might know if you're being too modest with it. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I might play around with that one.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from you on that one, man? It's pretty straightforward.
That one's a bit funny because I think for me, I'm not so good with the material stuff. I don't really.
I don't even see it as material though. I mean, you can obviously take it that way, but I more think of it as like.
Okay.
If someone does a really nice thing for me, it's not like I'm just going to give them money, but it's like...
Yeah, okay, no, good point.
I want to make sure that I, you know, if I have an opportunity to do something for them, to not just do that, but really try to add to it.
Okay, cool.
Further.
No, I definitely do that.
Yeah.
It's funny though, just because he said with interest.
Yes. Yeah.
It made me think of material stuff.
Yeah, money, yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely try and do that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's funny, I definitely took it the complete opposite way.
Good.
Because
good.
I mean, if you borrow money, whatever, who cares? Like, isn't
okay,
I'll pay
great.
back and give them extra money. But yeah, it's more
awesome.
Yeah. And it's just a nice way to be in the sense of I think it goes when he's saying further other things like it puts a nice positivity into the world instead of like someone giving me X, so I give them back X. If I give them back even more, it's just like a nice positive, you know what I mean? Otherwise it feels like an accounting ledger or transaction, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
And, you know, the thought that comes up there as well, though, is like, sometimes the fear is like, if I give them more, it's taking more from me.
Mm.
But the wonderful thing is like, can I be just as happy or even happier with less? So that,
nice.
Yeah, like.
And would you be so in the happiness of giving them extra?
Oh yeah. It's like I can give them more because I don't need very much.
Yeah.
It's really cool to live from that place.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's probably different to the way you may initially be, so why not try it and see how you feel? I'm just saying it for the general listener, myself included.
Yeah.
Or I could possibly be more that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, but just because I think you can live from a place of abundance with less than you think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Abundance is more of a mindset that I have more than I need. And one way to have more than you need is by not needing very much. So I try and think of that sometimes when I'm like, I'm going to give away quite a bit here. Then I go, okay, what's worst case scenario, that I live on the street? Okay, who cares? I mean, not that that's going to happen, but like the worst case scenario isn't as bad as you think. And yeah, it's like the Stoic thing of like not memento mori, what's the premeditatio malorum, to just think of what's the worst case scenario here, and then to get comfortable with that. And then if you can live like under what people would call poverty and still be happy, then anything above poverty for you is abundance.
Mm.
So yeah, the generous person, oftentimes they talk about this actually, how people in trying circumstances are often quite generous. And it probably has to do with that good feeling that you get from giving things away.
Yeah. To be honest, though, I find that it difficult in some senses that for a lot of my ambitions, like having more wealth, and that makes them easier to achieve. Like I'm not forced to work as much, so I can have that time available to do the other things, or I can put in more resources into the things that I want to achieve.
Yep.
So I am aware of that, in that I don't want to be what's the word? I think he uses a word in the golden mean thing, but like outrageous with how much you give to. Because at a certain point it can be almost obscene, right? I mean, but even then, like just not being excessive where you need not be, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not actually saying you should be self-sacrificial.
Yeah. But
just to be like, for me, it's been interesting to let go of, for instance, what everybody else tells you is what you need. Like, for instance, I don't have a car. It's never affected me in any negative way ever. In fact, really? I walk everywhere.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I never have to find a parking, and there are all these expenses that I just never have to worry about, including the psychological expense of worrying about your car, that you have a material good that you now have to worry about. So what I mean is, like,
I'm not worried about my car though.
You can live, I'm not saying for you, but like that's a possible cost. You can live below what other people tell you is what you need.
Yeah.
And if you can get comfortable there, then what everybody tells you what you need is an abundant place.
Yeah. I think I feel pretty similar in that respect, where I'm like, I live way below my means.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I'm very comfortable.
Yeah.
I could live much, whatever.
More lavishly.
Yeah, but I don't. It's not really going to do anything for me, so I may as well focus on what's important and not. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Lovely, mates. Okay. It's cool you highlighted that, because I feel like when you did that, maybe you were thinking like, yeah, I always want to be a generous, like, yeah. And again, not just monetarily, but I guess like a generous person. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's also thoughtful in a way. It shows like appreciation for the things people do for you. You know. Yeah, so that's cool. never or only reluctantly makes a request, whereas he's eager to help others. That's interesting as well. I like that. And then again, to be more vulnerable with the film, I feel like I made a lot of requests, like of people to work in the film and to do things for the film. I don't feel bad about that. I feel like it's I feel like it'd be very stifling if maybe that's something you mentioned about me as well, that I don't seem to have a problem asking for help. I feel like I would be stifled if I did. You know what I mean? And I don't think that would be virtuous. That would almost be too concerned about troubling other people, and therefore not doing anything. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, maybe in this sense, I think I love it. Never or reluctantly makes a request. So never makes a request. I don't know. I guess so. One way around that is like if I request something of someone to pay them, because then it's not quite a request, right? It's more like an offer. Okay. Would you say? What are your thoughts on this?
We don't have to agree with Aristotle.
Yeah, cool. I'm just exploring these ideas. Yeah.
We don't have to agree with him.
I think I agree with, even on this one, I agree with aspects of it.
Yeah.
In the sense of it's clearly not a good way to be to every person you meet. Hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Yeah. Constantly, like that's, you just wouldn't feel good about that. But to say never or only reluctantly.
Yeah.
I get that. That's putting the spin on it, like you shouldn't do this all the time.
Yeah.
But then if you take it too literally, then you like would not ever,
Yeah.
So anyway, what are your thoughts, man?
Like my thoughts are that if you want to achieve something big or great, you got to get help. So I can also see, like, because I think my natural tendency is to be quite reluctant to ask for help. But it's also because I don't actually feel that I'm that ambitious in terms of, I don't need my life to be any different than it already is. I'm so happy and yeah. So it's interesting because sometimes I have to be like, got to be more motivated here. Maybe the way that I more think about it is like, we're going to do this together. We're going to achieve this thing together and it's good for both of us. So, I mean, I don't...
So that's not a request. That's a opportunity.
It's more like, let's be a team together.
Yeah.
But, I make requests every now and then. But I'm definitely reluctant about it. And it's like, should I be less reluctant? I don't know. I'd probably be doing more impactful if I asked for help more often, if I'm honest.
Yeah, maybe the way I take this would be like, be considered of what you request, which I think I am. And if I'm with the film, my way of thinking is like, this is an exciting, it's going to be good. Yep. It's going to be a good thing to be involved with for everyone that's involved. So therefore, what else was I going to say? Going blank on that. It's weird.
No worries, we got a ton more.
Yeah.
Qualities of the magnanimous man.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Sorry, I got it. Another interesting thing I heard, which is apparently if you ask someone for help and they help you, right, they feel good.
Yep.
So that's also somewhat helped me in the sense of when I do want to make a request. Of course, I think I would think it's something reasonable, and I guess it all depends on the circumstances in the relationship, But yeah, I'm aware that sometimes, like, if they're the right person for this thing, it's probably going to be like they'll be happy to do it, and they might even feel good about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a book called Give and Take by Adam Grant, who is a organizational psychologist. And so one of the things that he discovered is that it's interesting, like the most successful, the least successful people in business turn out to be the biggest takers and the biggest givers. So obviously if you're just a taker and you never give, you're going to have a terrible reputation. No one's going to want to work with you. If you're just giving and giving and giving all the time, you never make any progress on your project. So it's interesting that on either side of the spectrum, actually this is like a golden mean thing, on either excess or deficiency, definitely not the virtue. And it turns out like that actually the best way to get ahead is to be somebody who gives, but only in the right circumstances. And those right circumstances, for instance, are you in a unique position to give the thing that they're asking you for? Are they asking you because they don't want to do it and anybody could do it and they just need somebody to do it? Or is it that you have a unique skill set or something unique that allows you to give that thing to them in a way that they couldn't get it from somebody else? So that's first of all. Second of all, does giving in whatever way they're asking you give you energy? Do you feel drained by it, or does it excite you and give you energy? Right? So that's another way. And then does it conflict with your other goals? So like if you were to give in this way, would you get overwhelmed and not be able to complete your other tasks efficiently? So it's important that the person who, and it's interesting that those people who give in that way are not the people that you would think as givers, because they can be quite brash. Like, how do I say this? If you ask them to do something for you, they'll be like, okay, let me think about that. You know what I mean? Like they're not the picture of a generous person. Mm-hmm. They're maybe even a little bit standoffish because they only want to give to certain people in certain ways at certain times.
Yeah.
So
what's cool about that is that makes me think, just knowing that can make you a more compassionate requester in the sense of, before I ask you, and I think I to some extent do this already, but like before I ask you of a request,
yep.
Hopefully I have thought, is Nick like really good at this thing, or is there someone else I know that is more appropriate? Is this something that will give Nick energy? Is this something that will help Nick with his other goals, maybe, or at least not detract from him? Mm-hmm. And then maybe if it meets all those things, then I ask it to be a more
thoughtful requester.
Yeah.
And I have somebody at work who's like really good at this. I love working with her, where like the last project we collaborated on, she goes, this is what I need from you. And it was like very clear what she needed from me. And she goes, if you can do this, then here's the resources that I have, and here are the things that can help you get there, and only if you want to do it. And then this would be the outcome of that and how it would help you. Like, nice. It just made it so easy. And I remember it was a fairly challenging task, but I finished it either that day or the next day because it gave me so much energy and I was so excited to do it. A lot of the time when somebody is asking me for something, they'll set up a meeting and then we kind of talk out. First of all, some fucking small talk first. And then they kind of don't even really know what they want from me. So then there's this whole thing about them making it less ambiguous in their own minds. Yeah. They should have done that way before the meeting. Yeah. And then it's like, do they even really know what I can offer to them? Or did they just ask me because they thought Nick's a smart guy or something? Yeah. And the other thing about this was like this person that had asked me for help, she like read one of my papers and was like, the amount of effort that she put in was like, and I just want to keep working with her. And it was good for both of us because she then asked me for something and I efficiently got it done. And so I always try to be like that. I probably over prepare to the point where, to be honest, what happens a lot of the time is I over prepare so much that I just solve the problem by myself. So what happened when I got to Harvard, actually, because I was like, oh, like I want to be a good enough machine learning person to be at Harvard. And then I became the machine learning guy. They were like, okay, Nick's the machine learning guy now. I over-prepared. So it's funny how, like, yeah, oftentimes I'll think about, what exactly do I want from that person? And then by putting in the work to make it clear to them, it's like, oh, now it's clear to me. Can I give that to myself? Maybe. And I did that a lot throughout my PhD, and it made me it just made me develop really quickly. Because then I was like, okay, here's the gap between, can I just become the person that supplies the thing that I need?
Yeah. That's very cool, man.
So, and I think, to be honest, it comes from my reluctance to ask for help.
Yeah.
There are benefits and negative and downsides to it.
Yeah. Very cool. It's interesting how this, because the film has almost been the opposite experience for me, where up until the film, I do everything myself, because in some ways it's easier. I kind of know that I'll meet my standard, but it might take me longer, because if it's something I'm not experienced in, I will have to figure that out.
Yeah.
And then because you're one person, everything just takes longer. And making a film, you have to have a team, and you've got to trust the people, and typically they will be better than you at their field, more experienced. So that was a bit different. But then even now, like in post-production, there's like a little special effects thing that I'm adding in.
Oh, cool.
Which is basically like, not to spoil it, but there's like a night sky, and because of like the camera and like technical reasons, and they can't, like, what do you call it? Whatever, it doesn't matter. But like, because the camera was capturing certain light, everything else is black. So the sky is black, and I want it to be a starry sky. So I'm going to special effects that in. It's definitely something I could do, because I've done things like that before. But I also know that special effects, like, you got to fiddle around a lot if you're not very good at it. Whereas if you're experienced, it's probably something you do quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and one of the people in the team I know can do that kind of stuff. And so I was on the fence about asking them to do it, or should I just figure it out and spend more time. In the end, I asked them to do it because they're part of the team and that's what they're good at. But I guess as a backup, I'm like, if I don't do it quick enough, or if they don't want to do it, then I'll probably just do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's similar but different. I'm trying to be efficient, I think, you know what I mean, rather than because if you're trying to do everything yourself, then
definitely, as I said, there are some downsides. It's interesting because I noticed that when I was working in cancer research, so I worked in a cancer biology lab for a while. My background was in chemistry and pharmacology. And so whenever there was like a chemistry problem, so for instance, in cancer drug discovery, oftentimes there's like a lot of pure biology to try and figure out how the disease works. And then at a certain point, you may come up with, like, for instance, in our research, we came up with a protein that was 3 times overexpressed in cancer cells that was not supposed to be expressed in normal tissue. So then it's like, oh, wow, like now we can take advantage of this little protein that's overexpressing. But at that point, it becomes chemistry, because you're like, well, how do I turn this protein off? And the answer in our case was we had to disrupt a protein-protein interaction. So then you got to design a compound that can do that. So then that's not really within the wheelhouse of the biologist that discovered that mechanism. So what was interesting was that I kind of built up a reputation for somebody that understood biology and chemistry to a high enough level that I could tell them what they should do for the next steps. So it was really cool because I got asked to be to come onto projects at the most exciting time, just because I was the only guy. And so I realized in the context, and that was around the time that was just before I read Aristotle, actually, early 20s. And I realized, if you don't understand the next level of abstraction up, you have to ask for help. And you also have to let go of the project in a sense, because you don't understand what happens next, which was not acceptable to me. I don't want it to get to an exciting point and then I have to let it go. And so I was in this really interesting perspective where I was kind of like, I had a bird's eye view of the institute. So then my brain went, okay, how do I learn to reason at the highest level of abstraction so that never happens to me? So that if there's a chemical problem, I know how to solve it. And then if it goes to physics, I know how to solve that. And then if it goes to mathematics, I know how to solve that. And then if it goes to philosophy, I know how to solve that. So that is why, after studying chemistry and pharmacology, I went back to university as a mature age student to study philosophy and mathematics. And my PhD was on physics, but because I had chemistry and math, the physics were, I wouldn't say easy, but I could handle it. Whereas if you have physics, it doesn't mean that you know mathematics. So this thing around like, not just not wanting to ask for help, but also that if it goes somewhere exciting and I don't know how to reason at that level of abstraction, that for me, that is like, because I just like asking why that. And so if it goes to a level of why where I can no longer be part of the arena and I have to work on something else, it's just very disappointing to me. So that's why I was like, okay, pure math and philosophy, that's my next degree. So it can, like, I don't know, there's upsides and downsides to not asking for help.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I can see the intellectual fun of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas in the case of the special effects, I think, like, I know enough about it, and I know I could do it, but I'm happy that someone more proficient can. Do you know what I mean?
I see.
I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. I get that because other people at the Cancer Institute were quite happy to let me do that next thing. Mm-hmm. It's just, for me, it's not like Richard Feynman said, if you can take anything seriously enough, you'll find that it's fascinating. And I think part of that is because of the depth.
Yeah.
So I want to go as deep. Yeah, that's just my role or what makes me happy.
Cool. So if you're making a film, would you delegate? Or would you be...
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because there are certain things, like I'm interested in intellectual depth. Yeah. So if there are certain practical things, I don't want to do that. And there are people that are better than me at doing that. So...
And people that are really interested in those things.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't have any...
That's what makes a good team. Like
I'm getting better at that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
complementary skills.
Yeah, nice.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, he's eager to help others. That makes sense. Although I'm now thinking just quickly, like, about how you were saying in that other book, in only accepting the requests that you know are suited to you and considered to you, not. So yeah, that's also interesting. Eager to help others, like you can be, but not selflessly. Right.
That's correct. Yeah, you don't want to be self-sacrificial. For me, I'm eager to help so long as I can be helpful.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in doing it just because I can do it and you need somebody to do it.
Yeah. 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 I feel like this is, because it's hard to say it in a written text, but I think the way it's kind of arrogant, but I presume the way we're sort of assessing this is in the spirit of what he was meaning.
Yeah. I do too. And also these are his lecture notes, and Aristotle does not have access to all the stuff that we know. Yeah. Like he didn't read Give and Take by Adam Grant.
Didn't he? Yeah.
So, and yeah, I actually think a lot of philosophy is just that person expressing their own views.
Yeah.
So,
almost all of it, no?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. But the thing about philosophy is that it gives off this haughty exterior where it's trying to figure out the most fundamental questions, but actually it's just a reflection of how you are as a person, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah. Good segue onto the next one.
Yep.
He is haughty. Yes.
No.
Yes. I wanted to get a triple Niaz in and we just did it. He is haughty towards those who are influential and successful, but moderate towards those who have an intermediate position in society. Yeah, I like that too. Basically it's more extreme than this, but treat those below you with as much respect as you would with those above you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although he's saying treat them with more respect almost. Yeah.
With more respect.
With more focus, maybe not respect, but yeah. It's good.
Yeah, you're like disdainful towards people of higher stations.
Yeah.
You know.
Almost be humble, right?
No, he's not. He's saying be haughty, which is like arrogant, almost like a little bit rude.
Why do you think that is?
Well, he says.
Okay.
You can keep reading actually.
Because in the former case, to be superior is difficult and impressive, but in the latter, it is easy, and to create an impression at the expense of the former is not ill-bred, but to do something among the humble is vulgar, like using one's strength against the weak. I got to think about this.
You can see why I didn't highlight the whole 2 pages.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just saying it's harder. It's easy to be nice to people who are above you and to be disdainful to people below you. So do the opposite of that, because the person's station in life isn't relevant to whether or not they're an admirable person. So just remove that by doing the opposite. But
to be haughty would be, I don't know, that would make me a bit uncomfortable, I think.
Oh, yeah. We don't have to agree with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure I would be. I think I'm a little bit more moderate by being like, that's just a guy.
You're like, sorry, what was your position again? I'm the manager.
Get fucked.
Yeah. Okay, then, well, yes.
Yeah, no, the way that I think about it, as I just expressed, is like there are admirable people at every level. So, and there are like people that I don't admire that are in higher stations than me. So they get, I don't really respect those people. Because to me, station in life is not.
Maybe my take on this is, it's irrelevant. Like just treat the person as the person and on their own values and merits. Yeah.
Good.
He does not enter for popular contests. Yeah, I guess that's pretty straightforward. Nice. So it looks like he expands upon some of these in the non-highlighted sections.
Yep.
Yeah. Open in his likes and dislikes. Yep, I like that a lot. Maybe I'm not so open about my dislikes. Because, I really try not to, if I don't have something nice to say, not to say it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Although I guess that's...
Yeah, dislikes. I'm probably also not as open about that.
Maybe with certain people like you, I'll probably tell you what I... Even then, like, I don't want to offend. You know what I mean?
Think we focus on the positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I don't really like it when people go, that was a shit movie. Rude.
Yeah.
That's rude.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, although does he go on to, I think he goes on to justify why you should be open.
Well, he says concealment
is a mark of timidity. Yeah.
And to speak and act straightforwardly. That's actually another point. Yeah. Makes him outspoken and candid. Except for what he says in irony.
Yeah, he just doesn't want you to be timid. So the magnanimous man is not timid.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's a good way to put it. Because then I would think, like, which means you do express dislike when appropriate. But then I think you should also be measured in when you do that.
Yeah, it's probably more rare.
Yeah.
That you need to express.
Yeah, but when it needs to be done, you do it.
Yeah, because you're not timid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Speak and act straightforwardly. I like that a lot. It's good. He cannot bear to live in dependence upon somebody else. Yeah. Nice. That ties in with
responsibility.
Yeah, and also the road less traveled about the independence.
Cool.
Before like being in a relationship, it's important to be independent and then become interdependent and like enjoy living with each other, not because you depend on them for anything, but because you both enjoy the option of living together, even though you could happily not, or be together, sort of thing. Yeah. Nick's giving me a stern nod. Yeah.
I just agree.
Express that one. Yeah. He's not prone to express admiration. He's not prone to express... Interesting. Because nothing is great in his eyes.
Yeah, I knew that you wouldn't like his points on admiration and excitement.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just a guy, and there's I can be that guy too,
My assessment of that one is like, so that and the excitable bit, which comes later, is maybe to not get swept up in things thoughtlessly. Maybe.
Yeah, right. You don't want to. Yeah, like nowadays we have a culture of praising celebrities.
Yeah, yeah, or even like
mindlessly.
This is a bit different, but like how if you go to a protest and then all of a sudden, you're like fully, oh yeah, that's the way it is, without like instead coming to that conclusion yourself. Yeah, because I think it's great to be. I love the feeling of admiration for like someone that's done something I want to do, or done something I think is really important. It's just inspiring.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have that about any celebrity doing anything, So necessarily depends on what the thing is, but yeah. And I love excitement, man. That's how I
know you do.
Yeah, that's how I seem to know what it's a good idea or not.
You know what's funny about this guy?
Yeah.
He's a bit of a dick. I'm not really that much of a fan.
Of Aristotle?
No, not Aristotle. This guy. The magnanimous man.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Doesn't admire anybody. If they're at a station above him, he's a bit of a dick to them. He doesn't hold his tongue. He never asks for help. And it's funny how you said, the dictate there was never or reluctantly.
Yeah. I feel like I'd like this guy, but yeah, maybe there are some aspects that I think
Okay.
I'll be a little bit different too.
I see.
We should make a film about the magnanimous man.
That'd be cool.
It's pretty much what It's Our One Class is.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
I wonder if we looked at all those. Yeah, we could.
I'm just thinking about that.
Yeah. He certainly doesn't really ask for help very much.
Yes.
He's pretty generous with his...
He's definitely generous. Yeah. I don't see him as like seeing other people as being above him.
He does challenge those above him.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And he helps people who are in a lower station.
Yeah. He's not really excitable.
We shouldn't... I mean, this is very niche. I just realized that our audience has no idea.
True.
Most likely.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we're talking about the Korean drama Itaewon Class. It's on Netflix.
Yep.
It's my favorite drama of all time. So, because the main character, he lives by virtue, I would say. He has very strong beliefs, and he stands by them in difficult circumstances. So it's pretty cool. I recommend it. And I think Nick enjoyed it too.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much binge watched it. It was very good.
Yeah, it's really good. I recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good point. It's a bit random for most of us. Anyway, also let's continue on this. Yeah. Anyway, yes, that's my take on that. Of because I think even if you don't agree with it, you can still take value from it. Of not getting swept up in
cool.
Thoughtlessly, perhaps. Get swept up thoughtfully. Yes.
Cool.
He does not nurse resentment. 100%, I agree with that. That comes pretty naturally to me. Yeah. The tricky thing maybe on that one for me is I agree with it, but then I also think like people shouldn't get away scot-free if they like what do you call it? Like they do something against you. So yeah, but I don't know. Maybe right now I don't know how to. I just try and not think about the thing, but then if I have future interactions with that person, I don't resent them, but maybe I'm wary and like
100%.
They have less.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
The way that I think about this, and this comes from Stoicism, is like, let's say a lion bites your hand. You don't need to nurse resentment towards the lion because it's a lion. Well, of course it was going to be biting your hand, but it doesn't mean that you need to go up to the lion and be like, hey man. So I think of people in that way. Actually, it's like that person's a lion and they are destructive, and so you don't have to nurse resentment towards them, but it also doesn't mean that you have to involve them in your life. So
and you can be wary of them.
And I think you ought to be a bit silly if you weren't.
Yeah. Tell them they're a lion. Yes. You are a lion. They're probably like, well, thank you.
Yeah.
He does not care for personal conversation. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Could we think of that as small talk? Yes.
Wait, read the justification.
He will talk neither about himself nor about anyone else, because he does not care to be complimented himself or to hear others criticized.
That's what he means. He means like gossip.
Yeah, because again, you could take that as like, how do you feel? Which is very important. Yeah.
He's just not really that interested in, it's, we
got
to
a translation thing as well.
I was just going to say, we have to keep, what's it like, take everything with a grain of salt, because it could be a translation thing. So when you read the justification, it makes more sense that it's just not about gossip.
Yeah. He will neither talk about himself nor about anyone else. Imagine trying to live like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I
difficult.
I like to think I never gossip. I just don't find any value in that. But to not ever talk about myself or anyone else would be stifling in a way.
Yeah, because you want to process things. Yeah. So this sounds like a guy who keeps everything in. The
last person to complain. That's nice. I like that. Speech unhurried. Good.
Definitely good for this podcast.
Yeah. And I like that, and he takes few things seriously. It's funny. I like that, but then the next word is he's not excitable. Wait a second.
Hold on.
Yeah.
But this might also be a translation thing, because he then goes on to say, like, you don't want to speak with a shrill voice. Maybe like overexcitable is what he means.
Yeah.
But he does say it's because he doesn't regard things as being great.
Yeah.
So
he regards nothing as great. Seems a bit bleak, eh? Reading it like that.
I'll tell you where I'm coming from with that, because I also believe in that. Is just that, and I spoke about this with your mom. It's just like, I think that everything's already wonderful. Harvard was not greater than Sydney.
Yeah.
Paris is not greater than.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But because everything is already great. Yeah.
Everything's already wonderful.
Because you know how you just before this podcast you were appreciating the clouds.
Yeah. Still am.
Yeah, and myself included, I find myself enjoying the smallest little things. And I like that. I think it's important to be appreciative of all like these simple things. Yeah. So is that what you're saying? Where like everything is great, all these things. So
if everything's great, though, nothing is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because So it's just there's no need to elevate something as being better than everything else. That in a certain sense, all circumstances can become beautiful. That, as Sam says, boredom is simply a failure to pay attention. And that if you can bring presence into every moment, what I have found personally is, and it was really nice because, like, connecting with your mom over this, because one of the ways that I feel most disconnected from most people is oftentimes they're fantasizing about what's coming next. Oh, it's going to be so great when I go on this holiday. And then the other person goes, oh, tell me about that. And then they have all these plans about what they're going to do. And the picture is that is much better than what's going on now. And for me, it's like, no, actually, we're sitting in a park and there's grass and there's dogs and there's breeze. And it's like, and we get to work on this wonderful thing. And I don't really identify with the next moment or the moment 2 weeks from now being better than the present moment. I find it quite isolating in that sense, just because everybody's always talking about the future. What you do something great, and then people always say, "What's next?" Not what's already here is incredible.
Yeah.
I also don't think that much about the past either. Comparing the present to the past, so I also think that I'm less excitable. Even recently, like, as you know, I won this grant, which then allows me to like have my job for a while and I get to pay my own salary. Everybody else's reaction to that was way stronger than mine. Oh my God, that must be such a relief. It was like, actually, no, I was excited about the prospect of not knowing what was going to come next because I had trust that the universe would provide for me and support me. So for me, that quote unquote success was not great. So I wasn't excited about it. It would be interesting to hear your thoughts on this as well, though, man, because it makes it sound that I'm not a grateful or an unemotional person, which I also don't think is true. It's just that I see things as already being wonderful, and they don't require another story of other humans telling me what they think is great.
Yeah. I think I'd take that as you were prepared and happy with any outcome. So when that outcome came about, cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If it didn't come about, that's all good.
Yeah.
Something else exciting will happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see it as ungrateful. Yeah. Like accepting and yeah, because I also know that is the outcome that you were.
Right.
It's suitable to what you were looking to achieve.
Right.
Because you wanted to continue.
Yes.
So.
It was definitely preferable.
Yeah.
I got the preferable outcome, but I was still indifferent to the preferable outcome.
That's hard to do, man.
To be honest, it happened automatically, and I think it's probably partially temperament, maybe. Maybe I'm just born like that. And then training. You know, I've been a meditator for more than 10 years, and I've also obviously taken Aristotelian and Stoic ethics So it's funny because I realized the other day, of course I'm different from other people because I've been training at doing this for 10 years. This is the primary goal for my life. It's not as if I've got my job and my house and my whatever, all my material things, and then philosophy's on the side. No. Philosophy is the primary goal, or at least living in accordance with virtue, or living a good life, or now with the meditation stuff. It's like you said, when we meditated just over there, a couple of meters away from where we are now, and I took a non-meditator to a place where you spontaneously felt beauty and comfort with no training, that when we removed everything, you went to a place of bliss spontaneously. That is what I've been trying to bring more into my life. You know, this idea that I want to be peaceful. And when you're living from a place of peace, everything is already it's difficult to explain if you don't have that in your life, but it's more like everything, or you already have what you need and more, so that more money, more fame, and more stuff is definitely not the answer.
You can appreciate it when you get it, but
yeah,
it's not it doesn't really doesn't change your state of mind.
Yeah. Yeah, difficult. I'm trying to think of a metaphor. Yeah.
I think I understand you well.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah. But yeah, for
anyway,
others that may not know you as well. Well, cool, man. Well, we've gone through them. I'll give you back. Yes.
I hope that was good listening. It was just
yeah, it's fun for me. I feel like it will be because it's the first time I heard that. It's a lot to take in if you just hear it. So to take the time to go through it feels like a natural way to process it a bit more.
Probably very good because obviously, I mean, I've tried to. You can see by the book that I've gone through it quite a lot. It might actually be a really good listening experience because you're figuring it out and in doing so, helping others figure it out. I just wanted to, I've turned all the way back to the appendix because he gives examples of like the extreme, the excess and the deficiency and then the golden mean, which I can tell by your face you're excited about.
Yes. Yeah, these I have read over, but I'm
great.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Deficiency is cowardice, excess is rashness, golden mean, courage. Deficiency, insensibility, excess, licentiousness, mean, temperance. So pleasure and pain. So so the deficiency is being insensible to pleasure and pain. Mm-hmm. The excess is so licentiousness, being overindulgent with pain or pleasure.
And that's being like overstimulated, so you don't really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost like an addict or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and an addict is licentious. Yeah. So then the mean is temperance, which is like I often think about as just like discipline.
Enjoying it, but to a measured amount.
Yeah. Which I think in the end makes it more pleasurable because the heroin addict is no longer finds heroin fun, but is just addicted to it.
But the casual heroin user, that's a sweet spot.
Yes. I'll tell you one that I think you're going to find funny is, so this is like how to be a good spender and getter of things. Deficiency, pettiness. Excess, vulgarity. Golden mean, magnificence.
Yes. Yeah. Wait, so we should, I think, again, as a fun experiment, each one we should just quickly go over like that. I mean, these are pretty straightforward though, but anyway. So the courage makes sense. Yeah, I don't think we need to speak about that too much.
The one that I think about with getting and spending is like, the other day I was walking through Central and some guy with like an Audi R8 pulls up.
My man.
And it was just so loud. So that's vulgarity. And I was just thinking what magnificence is. Maybe the humble Toyota.
Yes.
Magnificence, my friend.
Or could it be the R8 that's not revving the crap out of it?
Oh, maybe.
But then he gets out onto the highway and you hear it.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But let's on that one. So that was on what was it?
Yeah, getting and spending.
Getting and spending. Yeah. 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 It's interesting, hey, because you can. It's kind of obvious if you're what do they call it, petty. So you just clearly don't spend where you probably should. In maybe in the sense of if you can and it makes things really inconvenient for yourself or others, then it's probably fair enough to just spend more on that thing. But then vulgarity is it? Yeah, maybe that's like. And that's maybe a more... I mean, you can see when someone just spends money in a way that almost makes other people uncomfortable, I think. Yeah. Or it seems careless or something. It's harder for me to define that one, but I definitely feel it when I see it.
I'm just thinking about examples.
Yeah.
I often think that this kind of vulgar excess comes from a person who grew up with deficiency.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is that if you go to South Africa and you go to the slums, everybody has a huge TV.
Oh, really?
Yeah, these people that have like no money because those shows of wealth become so much more important to be like, hey,
yeah,
look at my. So it's just hilarious because all those people have iPhones, but none of them have toilets. So weird.
Yeah.
So when you're driving over the highway, you see like
they haven't read Aristotle.
Nah, yeah, you got to be magnificent.
Yes, be magnificent, my friend. Yes. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. The shows of wealth.
That's true, man.
It's funny how like even if you go out to like kind of the lower socioeconomic status suburbs of Sydney, what you find is that like people are like wearing, they've got the handbags, they've got the brand name stuff,
and if they can, like AMG, Mercedes, and things.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
In South African we call it dageskip, which means like it's like a drug. It's like the drugmobile. The AMG Mercedes clearly purchased with drug money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shows of wealth become more important with less wealthy individuals. It's interesting,
That is interesting.
The richest guy in the room is always wearing a t-shirt and shorts.
Yeah.
It's funny how that works out.
And then in terms of so the the mean is in the middle. I mean, I don't say that, but they can be too much, I guess, which is
it's funny how the mean here is magnificence though.
Yeah,
maybe it's a translation thing.
Yeah.
Any more on that?
Well, not really. I mean, we'll talk about this maybe after we've gone through them all, how perhaps the only way to get to the golden mean is to try excesses in both directions and see how you personally feel about it, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, although before the podcast we were talking about how sometimes you have to kind of practice it to get over that initial uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah.
So that it might be uncomfortable for a while and then eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. Only then can you maybe assess it.
The problem though is what I'm thinking about now. The problem is like if you go to that extreme and get comfortable there, then it might feel good for the wrong reason. It can feel good to be vulgar. Like, yeah, that was your immediate reaction was my man with the loud R8.
Oh, well, that's a bit, what's the word? Hoonish, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that, and there's a time and a place, my man.
Okay.
One other thing I was thinking was with our podcast gear. So when we started this podcast, I had a recorder that I would use for like small videos, and Nick had a really nice mic. And so we figured out we could plug it in and we have a pretty good setup for podcasting. And then when we were going to have a guest, I bought a new mic to match Nick's, which is pretty good. It's definitely not like, it's probably like mid-range. I don't even know if it's high end. Is it high end? I don't know. Anyway, but I think we've got a pretty good setup now. I would say it's quite a magnificent setup. Yes, in the sense that we spent some decent money. It's all pretty high quality stuff. It's not, but it's not excessive. We didn't buy like the most expensive, like unnecessarily complex sound recorder and mic, and like sitting in a soundproof room.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like if I was like, what's the best setup we could possibly have? We could do that, but we'd probably be sitting there thinking this is unnecessary.
Yeah,
yeah.
It might be 5% better. Actually, it might even be worse because of all that bloody setup.
Yeah, exactly. So,
no, I think that this is like an excellent mic.
Yeah. But I don't know. Naturally, hopefully, we hit that nice mean there. Where
I think we did.
Because for me, like this, I bought a new recorder, which is a step up from my old one. But I was excited about the new features, and I can utilize them. Whereas if I went to like a a much, because I was researching it before I bought it. I could have bought a more expensive one with more outputs and whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not really necessary right now. So
yeah,
something about that. Yeah. 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 I don't know. I think I also had, as a kid, might have had the experience of like insisting on, I need this thing, buying it, and then realizing like, I don't need this. I don't really want this. And now I feel bad because I wasted my parents' money on it. And that, I think, that was probably me going to that extreme as a kid, not really understanding this thing. You know what I mean? And then, yeah. Because it kind of feels good when you appropriately spend the resources on the things you need. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me think about, maybe we talk about this on another podcast, but the paradox of choice. So Barry Schwartz, I think he's a psychologist out of NYU, has shown that what we actually want is the freedom to choose. If you have too many choices, actually, you end up being less happy with your with whatever decision you've made, because then you're comparing. Oh, I could have gone on this holiday rather than this one. Or if I don't even think that I put that much research into buying this mic, even though it's a great mic. I was just like, what's the best mic? Just read a bunch of reviews and then bought it without thinking about it too much, because we know that deliberation actually ends up making you less happy with your. So for instance, if you have a choice of 3 jams and you have a choice of 37 jams, the person that only has a choice of 3 is always happier than the person that has a choice of 37, because then it's like, oh, maybe I wanted the raspberry but without seeds. You know. So I always make snap decisions just based on the literature. But if you only had a choice of 1 jam, then you would be unhappy with it. And it's because you don't have a choice in that circumstance. So then it's abrogating your freedom or your autonomy. So when you had that money and you were able to make that decision that I want this thing, perhaps some of it was just the autonomy of like, cool, I can buy this thing. So I always have that in my head of like, do I want the thing, or do I simply want the freedom to go and get it? Because, now we're at an age where it's like, well, we have the freedom to go and get most things that we want. So as we've talked about before, the better thing is just to not want the thing. So I always have that in my head of like, I'm free to have it, but do I need it? No. So may as well be happy.
Yeah. I feel like I probably a bit more research in these kind of things. Like I looked at almost all the sound recorders that exist reasonably, and then learned about each one, and then figured out what was appropriate for what we wanted. But I kind of enjoyed that. I enjoyed the process of learning more about everything, Yeah.
Yep.
So.
But you didn't dilly-dally, because I know how long it took you to make that decision. And it was not months.
Yeah.
It was pretty quick. And then you were pretty happy with your decision. So
yeah. I guess so.
On self-expression, so the deficiency is understatement, and the excess is boastfulness, and the golden mean is truthfulness, which we talked about before, where it's like you don't want to, it's difficult for you to accept praise. So for me, it's just been like, did what they say was true? Is what they said was true? Yes. Then I'm like, okay, I can accept that. It's true.
Yeah.
So, and for me, it's like, we might have mentioned in a previous podcast, taking myself from a third person perspective, being like, did that guy do a good job? Yes. Okay. That's just the truth. So, yeah. Truthfulness.
That's good. That's very good.
Is the main.
I feel like these are the things you could teach kids. I don't know at what age they need to be for it not to be too...
Well, I actually think that the best way to teach a kid is not by telling them what to do, but by acting it out. Yeah. And if you tell them something once and do the opposite 1,000 times, then even if you tell them 1,000,000 times, but do the opposite, act out the opposite 1,000 times, I think it's more likely that they'll copy your actions. So I think it's less important what you say. Or what you say is important, but it's more important how you live, which is what Aristotle says too. If you want to become a courageous person, it's the act. It's not the rationalizing. It's the act. And then the way that you become a courageous person is by doing it over and over again, and then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes part of your character. So
nice. Good.
Last one. I think you're going to like this one. In conversation, the deficiency is to be boorish.
Yeah.
The excess is to be a buffoon.
Yeah.
And the mean is wittiness.
Yeah.
Wittiness.
I love wittiness. It seems to be somewhat rare, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it's difficult to be witty.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think around you actually that's not true. I was going to say I'm more likely to be a buffoon, but it's not true actually. Sometimes. Every now and then a bit of a sprinkle of just stupidity. But mostly on the other side.
Buffoon sounds fun too.
It does sound fun, doesn't it?
Yeah. Maybe even that one though, like because you could almost be two extremes with me, right? Where you could be completely ridiculous and then we have a deep conversation. Yeah. And aggregate of those two is perhaps like the midpoint.
I think that's what probably we do.
Yeah. As opposed to never letting ourselves be completely stupid or too serious, maybe. You know, at certain points I feel like they're both good places to be.
Yeah, in the right amount at the right time towards the right person.
Boom.
So there's time for buffoonery.
Boom.
Yes.
I was going to say something very dumb. But...
Okay. So, do you want to say the thing?
Nah.
Okay.
I'll tell you after the...
Okay. So, Aristotle says that you do want some stuff. So, aligning the soul with virtue, not for a moment, but for a lifetime, and you need some stuff. It's just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where it's like, if you're too concerned with surviving, it's very difficult to align the soul with virtue. But one of the things that he says is necessary for the virtuous man or the happy man is friendship. Okay, so then it's like, how do you find the right friend? And he says, so I'll just quote here. He says, "The friendly feelings that we have towards our neighbors seem to be derived from our feelings towards ourselves. This is because the good man has several feelings towards himself and extends to his friend the same relation he has towards himself." And he goes on to say that it's because, I can't really find the quote now, but it's because everybody else is also a self. So what we admire in ourselves is often what we admire in other people. So the right person for us is the person that kind of has those admirable qualities that we wish that we had too. And so, yeah, you're often, the things you admire, they're very personal as well. You know, what you admire in yourself is like going to be different from what the next person admires. And so therefore, the person that you admire out there in the world is also different from the other person that they would admire. So he says, "A man is his own best friend. Therefore, he ought to love himself best, but at the same time, because that other person might have those qualities too, to love them for the very same reason." And it's interesting because he uses this word, might be a mistranslation, but the word that is used in the Nicomachean Ethics, so this is the Penguin translation, you want your friendship to be disinterested, that you don't get anything out of it other than the friendship, that you just admire them and love them. It's not transactional in any sense, that you're not getting anything out of it, and that it's likely to be kind of short-lived if it's more transactional. Okay, so that's what...
Very cool, man. Love it.
Yeah, so he says... Yeah.
So the best answer is, why are you guys friends? No reason.
Yes. Or that I'm friends with him. It's funny because like one answer is I'm friends with him for the same reason that I love myself, which is a bit of a weird answer.
Yeah.
But it's like because I admire that person. I admire the quality. It's not even really about the person. It's about the qualities that they embody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. It's funny. There has to be mutual though as well, like in that sense, because there might be someone you really admire that you meet, but maybe they don't feel it or whatever, and you can't force it. So that's just what it is.
It's interesting because one way of thinking about that is because you're not living in accordance with what you admire. So
maybe not being frank enough
or courageous or something, or you're just or scared, or everybody else is telling you to be a certain way. Like there are a lot of reasons why the soul is not aligned with virtue. And it is interesting that if you don't get along with somebody that you admire, that could be a signal that you're not living an admirable life for you. That your soul is not aligned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it in our case, right? There was this guy that I really admired. He lived on an island in Canada. And when I met him, we got on so well. And there was such an immediate soul recognition of, oh, okay, it's nice to see, it's nice to find somebody like me, where you're just so driven by curiosity and by blah, blah, blah. So we had all these characteristics in common. And so it was such a nice, like, feeling of like, it was so, it kind of justified that it was okay that I'm kind of different from everybody else, that I've chosen to be intentionally different, because the person that I admire most is like me. And then in your case, meeting up with like, these these Japanese gymnasts and kind of getting along,
Yeah.
It's a good signal that you're on the right path, I think.
Yeah. And then maybe for the person, for someone that's not as certain in their ways or something, maybe you could also respect someone but not know the real them, and hence if you don't get on, it's because they're misrepresenting themselves. Perhaps.
Oh, absolutely.
Something like that.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I think that's actually quite common.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, man, because one of the reasons that Aristotle says you need friends is because before we said with the magnanimous man, he is more willing to confer benefits than to receive them. So then in order to live a good life, the magnanimous man has to have friends so that they can receive his benefits. So it says here, the good man will need friends to receive his benefits. It's interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. You know what, man? Like, even I was thinking about like, how do I think about that? And just like, this is an instance of that where like I've taken Aristotle really seriously and now I get to share it with you.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
That it's not just for myself, that I put all this work into it. Yeah. And even with meditation, it's like,
and now you get to share it with a lot of people actually.
Yeah.
All your other friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
The community of people. Okay. So it says, man is a social creature. This is one of the things that Aristotle is famous for, that man is a social being, and naturally constituted to live in company. Therefore, the happy man also has this quality because he possesses everything that is naturally good. And it's clearly better to spend one's time in the company of friends and good men than that of strangers. It follows, therefore, that the happy man needs friends. It's interesting because it's reading Aristotle is very like, he makes a premise, conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're arriving at how to live, like we're arriving at ethics through logic.
Nice. I like that it's congruent with our I was going to say our, but I shouldn't speak for you, but my current thought of like relationships being the most important aspect of life and connection. So I guess it goes without saying, doing that, being a person that you respect and like, yeah, being the person you want to be, sort of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and like, just to reiterate, it's like if you're that person, it might take a while, but eventually you find other people that are like that.
Yeah.
Can be lonely for a bit, where maybe the current group of friends or your family, whatever, the current group of people that you're around push you in a way to not be aligned with virtue for you. Maybe virtue is for them, but not for you. Not a good fit. And so you have to go off on your own and do some self-exploration so that you can be better aligned with virtue. And then it can be lonely. But the wonderful thing about that is that if you live in accordance with virtue and you become that person, you're more likely to attract people that are like you. Eventually.
Yeah. In ways that you can't quite understand. Yeah.
Whereas it's very unlikely that you'll attract those people if you don't have the courage to make that shift. And for me, I don't think it's ever happened to me, but I have imagined kind of meeting the person that I admire and then it not going well because I didn't have the courage to kind of live in accordance with what I consider to be admirable character. I kind of have that fear. So then that deters me from, you know, away from not being authentic.
Yeah. Nice.
Got a bit of buffoonery here for you, man.
Yes.
Because this chapter is called
Aristotle himself.
It's just because of the translation.
Okay.
The value of friendly intercourse. Nay. Intercourse just means conversation. The friendship of the good is good and increases in goodness because of their association. They even seem to become better men by exercising their friendship and improving each other. For the traits they admire in each other get transferred to themselves.
Nice. Very, very well said.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the way that I feel about you, man, is that I get better by being around you. Okay. So, and in general, it's like, for instance, I had like the most heartbreaking relationship that I had when we broke up. Is one of the things that I realized is how far away I got pulled out of virtue by being around her. Like, it was just not a good fit. But I was just so desperate to be with her that I like became this other guy. And I kind of thought that that's what you had to do, just to become the person that they want. And I was driven so far away from virtue, and I became so much of a worse person in that relationship. It was kind of toxic for me. So it was interesting because I then revisited Aristotle. It was really important. I then revisited Aristotle and realized that being around her, it's just funny that it's called friendly intercourse. Having intercourse with her, it was not healthy for me. I was not better because of the time I spent around her. I actually became a worse person. And so I realized, first of all, that for me, the deepest regret that you can have is that you acted out of alignment with virtue. For me, that I so regret that I had this terrible gut feeling that I was doing the wrong thing. That's my daimon. That's my inner conscience that was telling me, this is wrong, this is dangerous, don't do it. And I ignored it, and I did the opposite, and I so regret that.
You did that to try and elicit an outcome.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So it's funny because now it's like it's all about aligning the soul with virtue, with placing zero importance on outcomes.
Yeah. But then those outcomes are like the right ones.
They are the right ones, and they're better than what you would have imagined.
Yeah. Very cool, man. Of course, I feel the exact same way about you and our friendship. Thank you, man. I feel so. I think back to the day we met because it was so random.
Right.
At a party, easily either one of us could have not gone to it, and then we never would have met.
Yeah.
So I feel very thankful, man, because I feel like you've definitely made me improve me in a lot of ways, having known you, and continue to do so, which is fun and appreciated, man.
Yeah. Do you have any? So I mean, if you don't, that's fine. But do you have any? Do you know what I'm talking about with that feeling of like these friends are not right for me because by being around them I become not as good. Although you don't seem to be that affected by the people you're around.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because I noticed early in school I separated that where strangely, like abnormally, where I started year 6. I did like primary, or what do you call it, kindergarten in Hobart, and then junior school in Coffs Harbour, and then in year 6 I moved to the Central Coast. And my first friend was like a quote nerd at that school because we got laptops in year 6, and I was so curious to learn all about my because I got my own laptop, which was pretty cool. So I became friends with this guy where we tried to figure out. I mean, I could see he'd changed his computer background. No one else had, and I'm like, "That's cool. How'd you do that, man?" And then we were just like being curious. Like we changed the background, then we changed the cursor, we changed how folders look. Just customizing our computers. Which I thought was really cool and fun. And later, like I realized like that guy's considered a nerd in quotes.
Yeah.
And so I get like cast as that, and but then I'd want to play like sport with certain guys, so I'd play sport with those guys, and they were in a different group, and like I don't know, I just seem to be friends with different people, and which seems pretty normal, but at school it's weird how some people just stick to their little group. So I never, even as a kid, I didn't really like being, you know what I mean? Like I'll hang out with you guys when we're doing that thing. Then I'll go do that thing with those guys. It was weird that those guys would never come with me with those guys because they weren't friends or whatever. So I don't know. In that sense, like I wouldn't be with people doing something I didn't want to do, if you know what I mean. Or I would go and do the stuff I want to do with the people that are doing it. I'm trying to think. So yeah, but I have been in like when I was in college, I guess, like the culture there was like party and drink a lot, which I went along with for a while. I don't know. I was all experimenting and learning and trying stuff. I'm trying to think about a relationship that. With anyone that has made me act against my values. Surely there has to be sometimes that's happened, but I can't really think of that.
That's cool.
It's really hard for me to think of.
Interestingly, man, like I was the same in high school and primary school. Like I had a lot of different friendship groups. And I still think like people are more diverse than they give themselves credit for.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just always remember thinking like, I'm going to go over here and do this thing with these people. And I kind of liked that there were these different like, my life was segmented into these different like, I don't know, it just felt so Like I was fulfilled in so many different ways.
Yeah. I didn't mind it. Maybe I saw it was one weird thing I noticed it was weird was like I could sort of tell that these guys that like like the rugby guys, they were interested in these computer games we were playing with these guys, but like because they
didn't want to be typecast.
Yeah, and I'm like, just freaking play the game.
You know
what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe there'd be more. I mean, surely there would be more like because it's also crazy if you're friends with these 7 people. You really assume all 7 of you like all the same things and don't like all the same things. Like that's clearly not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, it comes back to like how you convinced me or you helped me to think about how some people don't have the time to think their positions all the way through.
Yeah.
One of the benefits of that is that like if you're in this group, you now can just download the values that group has.
Yeah.
So like if you're a footy guy, then you just download all of those values, and there's a certain safety into being just a footy guy. And it's funny because I also went to kind of a blue collar high school, and not that you did, but I went to a high school where I was kind of, me and my brother were kind of like didn't really belong. And so it was always like talking about the Manly Sea Eagles, which is like, not only do we not live in Manly, but I've literally never watched a rugby game.
Yeah.
So it's just funny because the principal would always be like, because the principal supported Manly Sea Eagles, but we lived in Randwick, so everybody else supported the Rabbitohs or whatever the bloody thing is.
Yeah.
So it's just hilarious. Because my brother and I were just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
But I can see how there's a certain tribalism that emerges out of being part of a footy group or being a certain thing, and then you feel safe within that thing. But I can only imagine how confining that would really be. That now you have to align your soul with being a Manly Sea Eagles supporter. It'd be interesting to talk to one of those kinds of people, because maybe they even haven't thought about it deeply enough, or they just think that that's the way things are. So they've accepted that these are my beliefs and this is my football team, and I'm on this side politically, and this is where I live, and I drink Tui's beer and I don't drink that beer, and there's like a whole thing.
Yeah. That's true. I can see the comfort in not having to think about any of that. But I feel like you miss out on a lot of that authenticity of yourself in a way, right?
I think it'd probably be quite confining.
Yeah. Not to judge it at all, just exploring it. Yeah. Not that I also get that sense from you, which is cool. Like exploring the that way of being.
Yeah, I viewed it from the outside for quite a long time, being at high school with those kinds of people.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to think if I can think of if it comes to me, a relationship where I've
That's really, but I just also didn't think you would have one, because I don't really see that in you.
Well, I can't think of it, but I don't.
Maybe because like your mother is quite like, I don't see your mother as being that kind of person either. She seems to know who she is, and it's like with the magnanimous man, it's like you express your likes and dislikes openly, because timidity is not a virtue.
Yeah.
Maybe part of it also is like the pressure to fit in as an immigrant. It's like, maybe we are told to be a little bit more timid and just to be like, go along with the group so you can fit in, or give off the appearance of fitting in. You never really fit in. So that's the thing. So I don't know where it comes from for me. I used to be proud of the fact that I used to be like a social chameleon. Like I could fit in anywhere, just because I had to, out of moving around and like having so many different friendship groups while I was growing up. You have to figure out how to fit in quickly, to the point where my accent would just change. Every country we went to, I would have a different accent. And I think, when I probably when I went to university, or just, finished my first degree, I realized like or maybe even later than that, maybe my mid-20s, I realized like, I don't know who I am. It's just because I'm no one. I'm just whoever is required for the circumstances. Yeah. Although it's interesting because like there are some people I admire that have the ability to kind of flexibly adapt to the situation, but I get the feeling there's a kind of a stable core underneath all of that. So there's probably a golden mean here of authenticity and adaptability that I am now at the moment on the extreme of not being adaptable at all. Just to see what it's like, and then I'll probably adapt later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't think you'll ever like make people uncomfortable by being so different. I feel like you'll adapt yourself enough to the situation so that everyone's comfortable.
Yeah, I'm also not that interested in sticking out. So, yeah.
You've done that before, I guess, in the past there.
I have.
Yeah, so you know what that's like. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. I really like that you experiment.
Yeah.
Because that's courageous in itself, where you've gone from like talking to random strangers deeply, because that's not easy to do, and then to like the opposite of just being intentional with who you talk to. Yeah, I really respect that courage and curiosity as well. And it's cool to know that you have the ability to do that if you want to, if it's necessary for because other people might just struggle for that. If they really want to do it, it would be hard for them, I think.
It's funny because like in the preface to The Road Less Traveled, which we'll talk about eventually, Peck basically says a lot of the feedback that he gets from the people that have read the book is like, I'm really glad that you had the courage to say what you're saying, just because that's how I feel and nobody else is saying it. And he said, I don't know about this courage thing. It seems more like a congenital obliviousness that he wasn't aware that you're not allowed to say these things. So for me, it's also it's not. I don't see it as I like that you. I mean, it's nice that you think I'm being courageous, but I also just think I never thought that you couldn't just change your personality. That arose to me, or that the opposite was never really asserted or whatever, was never really reinforced to me. So that I don't think that I was ever discouraged from experimenting with my personality. And now it's more like character, of like how what is the golden mean between these two extremes. And so maybe that was another cool thing around Aristotle being like, it's good to be flexible, but there maybe are qualities that you want to aim for. So it helped me to kind of stabilize some of these aspects of my personality. For instance, introversion versus extroversion. Although I was going to say I'm pretty settled. I don't know if I am, actually. I'll think about that. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to be more extroverted now. But it does definitely feel more aligned with my soul to be more quiet and to have intimate relationships with a few people. So it's been cool to kind of experiment in that way. And I think Aristotle and a lot of people have given me frameworks for how to settle into stable qualities that make me happy and fulfilled.
How would you be more extroverted? Like you said, you've been thinking about it a little bit.
Maybe extroverted is the wrong word. Maybe I mean outspoken. Like I can be, although it's funny because I was going to say timid. It's not that I don't feel timid. It's more like, why do people need to know my opinion? I'm happy to listen. So maybe being more outspoken and like, although it's something that I'm thinking about, because on the other hand, I like the humility of just going like, maybe other people have better things to say about this than I do. As I get older, I don't think that's necessarily true a lot of the time, that other people have better things to say than me. sometimes the person that gets their way is just the loudest person, as I think your mum would attest to. So, that's more what I'm thinking about, being more outspoken. On the other hand, I don't really see it as virtuous to be outspoken, for me. I don't know if that's the best. So I'm just something that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool. Anything else you want to say about that?
It's pretty random, but I had the thought, so I might as well say it. Thinking back to like the frankness, openness of like expressing likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
When I was a bit younger, like, I feel like to be extremely strategic with like negotiations and things, I would often just withhold as much information as I could and only give the information they need to make the thing happen, basically.
Okay.
But nowadays I'm more, I just naturally came around to the idea of I'll just be straight up about everything, and then if a thing happens, great, and if it doesn't happen, that's fine. Because I used to just want the thing to happen, so I would withhold the information that wasn't going to help that. And this is again like for business kind of, you know what I mean, or just think, you know, outcomes that I want to happen. So but nowadays I'm more open, because you have to worry a lot less.
Yeah,
and
honesty is such a relief.
And then if the thing doesn't happen, then it's like, oh well, that's better than it didn't happen, you know.
Okay.
Maybe to a smaller extent, that's like what we were talking about, how with that certain person you were like not your authentic self, maybe. But a bit different anyway.
It's a bit of a shame though, because like explicitly people say you should be who you are or whatever, just be yourself when you go out. But there's also like the game, don't text too rapidly, or there are all these pressure on men to be a certain way and women to be a certain way, and even if it's not explicitly said, it's modeled that there's a certain way to be in order to be a desirable partner. So let's not even pretend that like people live up to those things, especially young people. So there's a lot of messaging that goes out about what you need to be in order to be a desirable man and what you need to be in order to be a desirable woman. And now that I'm older, it makes me a little bit sad that people will abrogate their personalities in order to fit into a mold of what they think they need to be. And it also makes me sad that that is something that can persist throughout your whole life. It's not as if you get to an age and then you stop doing that. A lot of us do that unknowingly for the rest of our lives. So, I don't know. It makes me especially sad to see that happening at a young age. I don't know why. It's bad at every age. Maybe it's because I feel that that somebody who knows better should be sticking up for them and protecting them. Yeah, like I remember a friend of mine asking, because their younger brother was about to have their first girlfriend, and he was a virgin. So she was like, "Can you tell me how he should be in order that he looks more experienced?" And I was like, this whole conversation is just not right.
Yeah.
Don't put that pressure on him to be something that he's not. Because look, there's an underlying message that what you are should be ashamed. You should be ashamed. It's not good. Yeah. It should be hidden. It's not right to be that. And there's just absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
At all. So it was almost like assumed that what he was bad. And I was like, well, let me give you some actually good advice. Yeah. You know, like there's nothing wrong with that, man. And it's totally fine, and definitely shouldn't hide it. And you definitely shouldn't pretend to be the opposite of that. How exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's just dishonest. You don't want to start a relationship off on a dishonest foot.
Yeah.
Bit of friendly intercourse.
Yeah. I was going to say dishonest intercourse, but you know.
Nah. Okay, so this is the last thing in the book, and
did they take that advice? Do you know? Or,
I don't know. I made my point really clearly. So if they took the advice or not, I don't know, because it's me versus everybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I very much like your take, mate.
So yeah, the last book of the Nicomachean Ethics is on pleasure and the happiness of life. And, you know, this is something that I probably agree with more, but I think you'll disagree with. So he says, if happiness is an activity in accordance with virtue, it's reasonable to assume that it should be in accordance with the highest virtue, and that this virtue will be the best part of it. That this virtue will be the best part of us, which is intellect and rationality. So therefore, the highest form of activity is contemplation. Yeah. Activity in accordance with philosophic wisdom is admittedly the most pleasant of all virtuous activities. What do you think about that, man? Contemplation should be appreciated for its own sake, and it's the highest good.
Yeah, I don't think I disagree with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What made you think I would? Well, I don't
know. It sounds boring.
Yes.
It doesn't sound very exciting, and I thought you would say, like, I have more fun doing gymnastics than thinking.
I don't think so.
Cool.
Because again, to go back to the most fulfilling thing in life of like having connection with people.
Yeah.
I think you can only have that when you connect with them about like these high level things. You know what I mean? Like when you both understand each other and agree on like on a philosophical, way of being. So.
Okay, man.
Yeah. I just feel that to be true. They feel like the most fulfilling, of incredibly fulfilling moments.
Yeah, it just reminds me of like, there are all these like really sweet moments that are few and far between these days, where you would have like a D&M, deep and meaningful, with like in your early 20s or late teens, you have a deep and meaningful conversation with a girl, and it's so sweet and tender. Oh, we talked for 4 hours, or we talked all night, or whatever. And those seem to be a meeting of souls.
Yeah.
Which is, as I said, it's a shame that tends to happen less, if you're not intentional about it. It tends to happen less as you get older.
Yeah. So would you also say that is the contemplation? I think so, right? With another.
Yeah, with another, I think is fine. Bit of friendly intercourse. It's just ridiculous. What a buffoon.
Yes.
But contemplation with others and by myself.
Yeah.
Is I find it to be just the best. And then even going beyond that, with the Buddhist thing, just seeing what's here now, just merely observing, not even needing to think. Tell you something interesting, man, because I was going to get this tattoo of the 4 cardinal virtues, and then I was trying to come up with my own definitions of what those virtues are. And I was able to come up with satisfying definitions for all of them except for wisdom. And I'm still trying to think of what that is. And so I was thinking, well, oftentimes we say that the central tenet of Stoicism is to realize that there are some things in your control and other things that are not in your control. And that wisdom is to notice which of those is true, which is in your control and which isn't. So then I was like, okay, maybe the wisest person has that, understands truly that there are things that are out of their control. So that's fine. But the more that I take contemplation seriously, the more I find, as we talked about, I think in the sympathy podcast, like we can't take credit for anything. Even if you just sit and observe your thoughts come up spontaneously. You can't even take ownership of your own thoughts. So then I was like, maybe wisdom is in merely observing without judgment. Yeah, that's the place where you come in contact with bare naked truth. When you see what's here and now, when there's no story, and there's no judgment, but you just merely observe, which means to observe with literally nothing. You're not trying to analyze. You're not trying to explain it. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I'm convinced by that either, but it's just a thought that I've been having over the past week or so.
Yeah. That seems like a wise way to be. But interesting, like wisdom often seems to be defined by like your experience of another, right? Like what they tell you. You know what I mean? You couldn't really say of someone he's a wise person if he never says anything. Do you think? It seems more that if they act in particular ways, which is like profound ways, or profound comments,
I was just thinking because, like in Zen Buddhism, it is often that the wisest person is simply silent. The Buddha has, I think it's 14 powerful silences or some other adjective, but 14 silences, profound silences, but something like, is there a self or is there not a self? And the Buddha is silent on that. It's like, because I think one of the bhikkhus, one of the followers of Buddha was like, so Buddha, is there a self? And he was like, did I say there was a self? And then he's like, oh, so there's no self. And he's like, and did I say there's not a self? Yes. He's silent on that. And he basically says, look, if your house is burning down, do you inquire into the nature of fire? Who gives a shit? We're suffering here. So I'm just going to teach about the nature of suffering. So he's silent on what he finds to be not important. Now that I think about it, this is more what I mean by timidity. I don't speak when there's no reason to speak. So the Buddha was silent on a lot of things that we think are profound. So maybe there's something in silence.
But could you also not say that he's profound in stating that these two things are not important?
Yeah.
Because that's effectively what he said.
He's being silent, but really, he's being really thoughtful about what he's going to be silent about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in a previous podcast I mentioned that because we were like, what do you think are the important things to instill in young people? And then I was like, actually, maybe it's more like, how do you give them the tools to identify false beliefs? But so more of a process of subtraction and reduction. And if you think about it, that's all science does. Science just disproves hypotheses. Contrary to popular belief, we never prove anything.
Yeah.
We're using scalpels to cut out what is false, so that we get maybe truth closer to the quote unquote truth. But we're always disproving hypotheses. So it's like, if you take that to the extreme, it's like, what does that mean in the most extreme case? Like, maybe none of it needs to be said or something. I don't know. We need to dedicate a whole podcast to that.
I was thinking like the laws are just, these are the hardest things to disprove. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it's but that all said, it obviously adds value, and it goes toward truth. But I know what you're saying as well. It doesn't actually say this is the truth, but it points us toward it. Yeah.
Gestures. Well, yeah, we just get a clearer picture of what's false.
What is pentane and what is pentane? Yes. One thought I had, and so that was a random joke tying to an experience Nick and I had earlier today. I really shouldn't have said it. I said it for you, Nick. Yeah, it's just for your enjoyment. How do we combat? So you said, like, as we got older, you think it's rarer to have those D&Ms. How do we combat that, man? That seems sad to me. I'd like to think we have more of them as we get older.
Yeah. It's only just by being intentional about it. I actually don't think there's a trick. It's like, as Aristotle says, like, if you want to be that thing, practice that thing, and then it'll become a habit. So I'm not in the habit of having small talk and talking about, and not having D&Ms. So people don't come to me for things that aren't D&Ms. Yeah. I just have D&Ms.
Yeah.
So it's great. But I had to be very intentional about that. And that's a turn that only happened in the last, I would say, 5 years. So, it will happen if you're, because your mum said that she feels uncomfortable going out with somebody for a coffee and then talking to them about deep stuff in her life, because it gives off the impression that, like, maybe you're trying to get something from them, or it can be a burden to be like, here's all my stuff. So I feel that it's a very common experience that, like, we feel that we're burdening people by talking about deep things. So we just talk about non-deep things. But then, as your mum said, you walk away from that conversation going, oh, what a goddamn waste of time.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not acceptable to waste my time.
Yeah.
Because, we're all dying.
Now that I think about it, I have had more of them with acquaintances, more toward the D&M side of things. Yeah. And it's probably just as a result of being more like this with a lot of things. So, yeah.
More intentional.
Yeah.
It's definitely possible, so long as you're intentional about it.
Yeah. And it feels normal for me.
Yep. Me too.
And the cool thing is, sometimes you can tell, I think, oh, this person probably doesn't have this that much with other people.
It's so, 100%, dude. It's so common.
Yeah. So that makes it more intimate in a way.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Cool, man. Well, I might wrap up then. How does that feel? Good. Here's a summary. And this is going to be improvised, so we'll see how well it goes. So Aristotle argues that if there is a purpose to life, it has to be something final. So most things that we do are instrumental. And so you need to think about, what do you do for its own sake? And we're just going to take as a definition, happiness is something that you do for its own sake and never for anything else. Okay, so therefore the purpose of life is happiness.
And friendship.
We choose, although we choose friendship in order to be happy, right?
Okay.
It's not chosen for itself. That is instrumental to happiness. It's part of it. But I see what you're saying. We choose friends for their own sake.
Yeah.
Good friendship is non-instrumental. Good. Okay. So that's one thing, that happiness is the ultimate goal. And it's it's obvious to show that you don't want to just be happy for a moment and then sad the rest of your life. So therefore, a happy life is one where you're happy for an entire period. They actually, a French saying, "Un hirondelle ne fait pas le printemps," a swallow does not make a spring. That comes from Aristotle. So he says, a swallow does not make a spring, just as a moment of happiness does not make a happy man. So yeah, we want to be, happiness is the object of life. We want to have it be persistent. The way that you do that is by fulfilling your function well. In order to fulfill your function well, unfortunately, you have to be furnished adequately with external goods so that you're not starving, and then you're not cold, and then you're not thirsty, and all those things. So you need a certain amount of material wealth. The way to be happy is to fulfill your function as a human. And what Aristotle says is that what makes us different from other animals is our rationality. Now, I think that I would argue that you can just take this further and say, what makes me special as an individual? And then to pursue that. And does that mean that you're an artist? Does that mean that you're a scientist? Does that mean you're an accountant? Maybe. So one way to be happy is to fulfill what your role is, what your function in society is. And in order to get closer to that, it's good to align yourself with people that help you to align your soul with that virtue. And so your friends should be people that you choose such that you get better and they get better and you get better together. Lastly,
that's not seeking something though, in a way. You know how we're saying it's good to have, you're not, no transactional friendship, right?
Oh, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I guess more what I mean is like, don't align yourself with people that take you away from the path. It's not that you're using these people to get you on the path, but more that if you notice that people are taking you off the path, that you should, it's probably a good idea to get rid of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then lastly, Aristotle makes the argument that the highest good for a human is in alignment with the highest virtue of a human. What makes us special is rationality. Therefore, to reason well is the highest virtue, and that goes to contemplative philosophical activity. And we came to this conclusion just now. That's really nice and fulfilling to do that with another person or with a group of people. And that, yeah, maybe that's part of the purpose and meaning of life as well, that we contemplate well together. Okay, that's a good enough summary.
Nice. It's very good. I'll accept it.
Yes. Cool. Well, as always, guys, thanks so much for listening. Thank you for your time and attention. And as always, see what's here now when there's no problem to solve.
Thank you for your friendly intercourse.